hates it when I do that, but like she tolerates it and she's getting better about it. And we're very proud of her. She's also just like coming down off like a catnip high right now, so she's like just staring wide-eyed at everything. She is definitely struggling. I'm pretty close to boiled.
Cool. Well, I've started my stream already.
Oh yeah, I'm streaming now. I'm just kind of like
okay.
letting it run for a second.
Okay.
I just don't like the sound of my kettle going because it's loud.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I need to descale it. Like it's probably loud because like it's got some like I think it's got scale on the bottom, but like what else is new? I just haven't done it.
Have you ever tried the bamboo charcoal?
No, I have not.
So supposedly that helps reduce some of that buildup. And supposedly supposed to, help improve the purity of the water.
Sounds like a load of horse shit to me, but what do I know?
Well, you got some strong opinions tonight. I like it.
I'm spicy. Well, shall we get going? My water's boiled. Are you ready to go?
Yeah.
Cool. Welcome to another episode of The First Deep. I'm Colin. I don't stream at all except for right now. Making a podcast about tea, and we're drinking Dongding tonight. Elise, would you like to introduce yourself as usual?
Hello, everybody. My name is Elise Peterson, and I am the founder of Tea Let Tea. It is a B2B marketplace for independent tea growers. So I have the great privilege and fortune of traveling around the world to learn about tea from small artisanal tea producers. Colin and I met on TikTok. We are TikTokers. And we decided to do this podcast together as a way to make tea education more accessible, more fun. We both have Twitch channels, so we decided to do it as a live podcast. And what we do in this podcast is essentially drink two different teas in parallel to learn something about the tea and about where the tea comes from. So those pairings will be either complementary pairings, they'll be contrasting pairings, or they will be complementing pairings. And today, actually, we're drinking the same tea. It's just one is roasted and one isn't.
One is extremely roasted and one isn't.
Awesome.
Well,
so yeah, Colin,
I don't know about
would you like to introduce the teas?
I would love to. So Elise and I traded teas again, and I sent a couple of Dongding Oolongs. One of them is completely unroasted, and the other one has a heavy charcoal roast. It has 4 charcoal roasts, and I believe all 4 are like 8-hour roasts, I think is what I remember. And so one is very, very green, and the other one is very, very dark. And even though the leaves are like really tightly rolled, like you can already see that really easily. I think the camera is like not doing color very well anymore. So there's just a major difference in the flavor because of that as a result, due to how charcoal roasting affects. And I have some pretty specific opinions about these teas that I will not give away until we have drank them. And some of them are positive and some of them are not positive. I'm excited to see kind of your opinion of how the roast has worked here, Elise, and kind of hear your experience talking about Dongding as a place, because I'm pretty sure, I think you've been there if I remember correctly.
Yes.
But honestly, this is like pretty much my favorite style of oolong. I used to hate oolong. I remember my first introduction to it. I was like, it's a cup full of twigs, and now it's like my most drank style. And Dongding consistently is one that I always really enjoy. Usually with a I tend to gravitate more toward the lighter unroasted stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do really enjoy my Dongding.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Actually, in my personal experience with Dongding tea or Dongding style teas, so that's, kind of a
Sure,
difference
very important,
because
yeah.
there is like Dongding Mountain, the area specific when they say, oh, this is Dongding tea, it's coming from this place. But Dongding style is something that I've heard from tea producers in other regions. And it's about the roast style. It's actually a very light roast, light to medium roast. So it's interesting to drink this. I've never done this myself, actually. I've never contrast the unroasted with a heavily roast, because I would say the typical roast that you get from this area would be probably somewhere in between. Although I haven't
Right.
tried these teas yet, but we'll get to try them now, which
So
is great.
because I've also got a in my tea inventory, I've got a traditional roast as well from Mountain Stream,
Okay,
and yeah, it's like kind of halfway in between these two.
cool, awesome.
As one would expect.
Yeah, cool. So my my assumption that I made from context clues was correct and accurate. So that's cool. A lot of times whenever you're learning about tea, it's context clues only that you're working with, especially whenever it's like a different language that you're dealing with. Although, Taiwanese tea makers and tea market has been very friendly to English. A lot of it has been documented in English,
Sure.
China is a little bit different. Sometimes it's a little bit different to get like the nitty gritty details about things in English, and so I find myself like understanding a lot of things just based off of context clues and what I've been exposed to and what I've learned. And sometimes it ends up being accurate, but actually a lot of times it ends up being pretty accurate. I think that says a lot about the power of intuition in tea practice and in tea art. Should we get started? Your water's boiled, my water's hot. I'm not going to use boiling. I'm not in the mood for boiling my
Yeah.
tea today, so but I got hot water. It's like 190 Fahrenheit, so not quite boiling. Are you going to do one at a time? Because like I have the ability to do them at the same time, but
So I'm gonna start with one, and I was gonna recommend that we start with the unroasted,
okay.
and then like after like a steep or two, move to the heavy roasted, just because of how different they are. Like, and I feel like if we drink them both at the same time, the unroasted might get lost.
All right, so here's the unroasted and the roasted. I'm just showing the color difference. You talked about that, so I wanted to show it.
Yeah,
You can
it's
see one
pretty
is
stark.
more green. My plate's a little green, so it's kind of hard to see the color contrast. One is more green, while the other one's darker, almost brownish in color.
How are you? How are you brewing?
I'm just gonna do bowl brewing. A very
Nice.
typical way of evaluating tea. These styles of teas is just in a bowl with your hot water and using a spoon to evaluate it.
And I know that it's a very
Just
common brewing
slurp
style in Taiwan as well. So
Yeah, that's why I chose this. It's also easier. Super easy to clean, super easy to... Yeah, that's pretty genius. I love it.
yeah.
Yes.
So I'm doing kind of the normal kind of kung fu thing here. I'm using porcelain for the unroasted, and the most porous clay I have for the heavy roasted. Just to see how it reacts, 'cause I haven't done that yet. So
Cool. Awesome. Well, I'm going in.
yeah, me too. I'm going in for my first steep here.
The first steep.
Oh my God! They said the name of the podcast.
Now it all makes sense. That's why you called it the first steep. It's funny. The reason why I thought that was one of your first choices for the name of the podcast was because of the little bit of discourse in the tea community about the first steep. I know we've talked about it on the podcast a couple of times, but maybe.
So honestly, originally that actually was the
Okay.
reason why I recommended it, because like I know that you and I differ a little bit on kind of our opinions on that. And like I don't rinse every tea. I don't toss out the first steep on every tea, but like
Yeah.
on this one I will, simply because I'm like, it's rolled in the ball. Like it can take like 10-15 seconds of water
Yeah.
before I actually drink it. I do actually have a funny comment about that though. So at Thanksgiving, my grandmother came over for dessert because she lives across town. She wanted to bring the pies, and we had a friend of mine over who I'd met in the Discord for tea, and then we just kind of randomly found out that we live in the same town. And so like I had invited him over for Thanksgiving since he didn't have anywhere to be, and we were having the 2010 Oolong that I sent to you as
Uh-huh.
well, and we did rinse that because it's compressed, you know, and it's compressed pretty tightly, so I do a double rinse on it because the first couple are just like tasteless, honestly. And my grandmother saw me do that, and she goes, "You're not gonna drink that?" I was like, "No, Grammy." Like, just, you know, and she goes, "That is so wasteful."
I love your grandma.
I was like, "But I get like, you know, like 15 steeps maybe if if I know what I'm doing out of this." She goes,
Mm-hmm.
"Wasteful."
Mm. Well, that's why I like this bowl brewing method, because as it steeps, you know, you can let it sit and steep for a longer period of time, and you can actually
Sure.
see the leaves unfurling as it's steeping, and just take spoonfuls as needed.
The the mug that I use for grandpa style at work is a glass mug for that reason specifically.
That's quite good, very savory.
Yeah. And something that I find remarkable is that like even though it's unroasted, there's still a lot of that fruitiness that like is
Mm-hmm.
common in a dongding that like a lot of people associate with roast, because the roastier it is, the fruitier it is. But I mean, still, even here, it's still super present, and there's
Mm-hmm.
still that kind of woody flavor as well.
Yeah, woody. That's a good way to describe it. Quite a nice texture. Pretty, quite rich, and you know, the thickness of the umami. You know, like the amino acids. You're definitely feeling that. Um,
Oh, I thought you were gonna say something else.
I was gonna say something else, and then I got distracted, and I decided, you know what, not worth it to say it. I'm just
No,
gonna take another sip.
so that's something that's always also been remarkable to me about Dongding, and it seems like that's just kind of something with Dongding that I've tried across the board, is that kind of almost creamy, thick mouth feel.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm not super familiar with my Taiwan geography. Is Dongding is in Nantao, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Or Nantao is in Dongding, or however,
Dong,
which one is it?
Lugu Village. So, like, yeah, the Dongding area. Lugu Village is in, it's in Nantou, which is like in the
Nantao.
center of Taiwan, in the center of the island. So it's not coastal at all. Very mountainous, and that makes sense that a lot of the tea is coming from
Sure.
there because it's very mountainous.
The reason I asked is just because like we had a tea earlier in an earlier episode, the White Ruby 18.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is that one? I believe, if I remember correctly, that one's from Nantou as well. Is that
Yes,
how is
just
that?
from down the road.
I guess how is that? I guess different than like what makes this different a Dongding? Like I'm truly like, is that just a style thing or?
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying. Is like the style of how the tea is processed and roasted, is what Dongding is known for. Um, I don't know exactly why it happened this way. I'm sure there's a lot of reasons why. Like the Taiwanese government has heavily supported research of cultivar and processing technique development, which is actually
Hmm.
started by Japanese when the Japanese were um, there in Taiwan, um,
Sure.
and then also I whoops. Oh, the secrets have been revealed. You're like the Oz. You're like the Oz
Something like
behind
that.
the. There's nothing behind the curtain.
Hang on.
Oh, this is always fun. This is always fun. No, we are not reading these tea leaves. We are drinking, evaluating these tea leaves. Today we are enjoying. This is called Dongding Oolong from.
Hopefully that works.
Yeah, I think it should work. Yeah, it's looking good now.
I just mean hopefully that stays.
Okay.
So you were saying, I apologize.
Yeah, it's okay. Okay, so Dongding is a mountain within the Lugu area, and Lugu is about maybe like a 45-minute drive from Mingjin, which is the town where that 18 white and the ruby white that we tasted before.
Mhm.
So the main difference, outside of just that they're in different places, is the cultivar, right? So the 18 ruby cultivar is very different than these cultivars, not suited for oolong, especially like the Taiwanese style oolong, more suited for black tea and now some experimental teas. But yeah, I was
Like the
saying
white tea.
like that white tea, and others. I'm sure they're gonna come out. And my
Right.
friend Alfredo, yeah, he came on the podcast with spontaneously that night. That was cool. Yeah, he's part of a movement that is encouraging more evolution and innovation in the processing styles of tea, because conventionally in Taiwan, if you are in a certain mountain or you're a certain area,
Hmm.
you're going to make a certain type of tea. And I think that has to do with the government outreach, research outreach that comes out and teaches everybody similar methodologies and introduces similar cultivars. But then also the marketing, so in Taiwan, a lot of the teas are kind of associated with the mountain that they come from, and there's like an expectation of the style on the style of the tea coming from that place. Um, but because of climate change, a lot of those things are going to have to change in time. They just have to. They have to evolve with the times. And so that's the reason why Alfredo has started making all these new teas, and they're a little bit more difficult to market, because there's not like an established understanding of what this tea is. Because before it was like, oh, this is Dongding, or this is, and the government supported this also with competition. So Dongding is really well known in all of Taiwanese tea industry for their very sophisticated competitions.
I didn't actually didn't know that.
Yeah, and you've probably seen like that as a label descriptor on teas, like competition grade.
Well, I mean, I've got competition style Baozhong.
Yeah. So there's definitely a established system of competitions for quality, and when I went to the tea museum in Lugu, they made it seem as if the competitions that they did there for the Dongding tea were like very well established and like the first in the country. Um, so that too also kind of creates like an associated like category of tea for each region. Um,
Right.
but we're seeing a lot of that change now, and it's kind of interesting how climate change is kind of the main driver of that. When I first met Alfredo in 2011, he was very rigid in his thoughts on tea processing and what a tea should be like, what an oolong tea should be like. Had very strong opinions, very aggressive, strong opinions with me because I was trying to introduce teas from other places that I had found to him, and
He was like, no.
no, yeah, he was like that. Uh,
First of all, how dare you?
but now his opinions completely changed, which is really great. And I'm always happy to see when people see other perspectives and understand that maybe the way that you were introduced to something or taught is not that there's not truth there or there's not goodness there, but that there's potentially always new ways to do things or to look at things.
So, in that tradition then of talking about how things are done, shall we drink something that's roasted as well?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. I'm gonna pour out this steep here, so I got something to compare.
Oh yeah, and before we start this one, is this the same producer, the same patch of tea, or?
Yeah, this is like the same harvest, everything.
Oh, okay, cool.
Actually, everything is the same,
Except for one's roasted.
except for the roast.
And this roast is a charcoal roast or is it an electric roast?
Yes, it's a charcoal roast. So the leaves are already much darker, and honestly, like it, the main thing that I noticed is that the balls since they're ball rolled, there's more dust in the heavier roasted one. It seems.
The balls couldn't hold up, huh?
I
Couldn't
guess
hold up
not.
to the heat.
PG-13 podcast.
I mean, what did I say?
I'm joking.
What did I say?
Stripes high on catnip and flinging a bird toy around.
Oh, that's fun. Quality
Yeah, she's having a
content
good
right
time.
there. Thanks, Craig. Yeah, I can already tell a drastic difference in the color. It's only been steeping for a couple seconds, and you already see like a darker color coming out into
It's
the
like
liquor.
red.
Mm-hmm.
Need to get more water soon.
I'm also seeing like some like oily swirlies going around that I didn't see on the other tea. I don't know exactly what that is, but I could only assume that it's just like the roasting must have like helped release those oils, so then the water is coming out in the water more easily now.
I mean, that has to have some sort of chemical reaction in the leaves other than just changing the way it tastes.
Yeah. Yeah. And then something else that changes too is the caffeine.
How so?
Because caffeine has a really low boiling point. The same thing in coffee. Like if you're looking for a lower caffeine coffee without going to decaf, just get a higher roast. Because
Sure, I have heard that before.
yeah, the heat from the roast, even though it may not be like super hot, is hot enough to release a lot of the caffeine. So I've seen in like tea roasting facilities, especially on the electric ovens, you'll see an accumulation of all of the caffeine on the like the door of the machine, and pretty much like all the way through like the ventilation of the whole room, you'll see these accumulations of caffeine crystals that have solidified after them and released into the air, and the air is cooler outside, so it'll like immediately crystallize.
You the think that happens when the hot thing meets the cold thing and solidify.
Yeah. So yeah, if you see that, that means that caffeine is escaping and just going into the air. So that's why roasted teas will tend to have less caffeine than unroasted.
Say, well, I can already tell, like, the color is like this almost like ruby color red.
Yeah.
I gotta let mine cool just a second here. And while I do that, I'm gonna take a half a moment here and go get some more water.
Okay. Let's see the color difference. Definitely more green here. This one's been brewing for longer. Maybe I can add more water here and you can see it better, the color contrast.
My apartment smells like warm roasty oolong now.
Yum. Oh man, warm and roasty is the best way to describe this. So comforting.
Yeah. All right. So now that you've had both of them, I'm going to give you my very specific opinions about them.
Let's hear it, Colin.
I am not a fan of roast at all.
Like any kind of roast or this kind of roast?
This kind of roast.
Okay.
The very, very heavy roast, like, immediately turns me off. But the unroasted is mildly unremarkable to me. I think it's a good tea. It's just, it doesn't have a lot going for it. But when you compare it to the heavy roast, it's honestly just night and day, and I have trouble believing that they're both the same tea. But I think it's a really good example of, kind of what roasting can do.
It'll completely change a tea.
And honestly, that's the thing about the unroasted that kind of, when I say, like, it's a little unremarkable, is it just feels like it's missing something entirely, right? And that's kind of what I think this roast is interesting. And I don't know a lot about the history of oolong, but I know that that roast is supposed to, like, stop the oxidation and, like, kind of add a new flavor profile to it. But it's extremely stark in this comparison here. Honestly, what difference that makes.
Yeah, so I'm finding that the roasted tea is it's good. It's sweet and nutty and gives you that roasty tea feeling. So I don't know. I think, like, unremarkable is a little too extreme of a term for both of these teas. But
I was talking specifically about the unroasted bit.
Okay,
sure.
Yeah. Even the unroasted, I don't find it to be unremarkable. I think it's nice. Like, if this was someone's first experience having, a Taiwanese oolong tea, I think it could be exciting for them just because of like that thickness and that richness, that creaminess to it. But I mean, if you're used to enjoying, like, Alishan, Qixing, oolong, beautiful high mountain oolong teas that have amazing huigan, then maybe this will be unremarkable to you. But
yeah, maybe, I guess.
But the roasted tea, something that I'm noticing on the roasted tea that's surprising me is that it's kind of missing some browness. Like, it's not finishing out. Like, it starts off, and it's very easy for a roasted tea to start off exciting because it's just the aroma is, like, sweet and nutty.
Right.
But on the texture,
almost medicinal.
It's almost medicinal. Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I guess, like, my first experience with roasted tea was hojicha, when I was living in Japan, and so I have a lot of memories associated with that, and so it always makes me think of those specific things. But regardless, I think for everybody, it brings some type of emotional trigger, a sensory memory
Yeah.
of like comfort and feeling good. Um, but the like from a like artisanal evaluation perspective, I feel like it's missing some roundness. It's almost like having like a sour finish. Um, it's not exactly sour, but because it's at the end of it is like kind of missing something, my sensory is just kind of feeling sourness.
It stops in a place that you wish it would give you more,
Mm-hmm.
almost. Am I right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It just kind of falls flat and then goes to the sides. And I guess I always associate any kind of like taste sensation on the sides of my mouth with sourness. And I think that's where a lot of our sour taste buds are located. So, um, yeah.
If I look it up, because we have the internet to
Yeah.
us.
Colin, like let's learn more about this tea.
Yeah, so the front rim of your like the front edge of your tongue is saltiness.
Mm-hmm.
The front palate of your tongue is sweetness. The sides around the sides is sourness, and the back is bitterness.
Okay. See, so I was I didn't go to food science school for nothing.
True. But I mean, that's like there's something I think kind of to that as well, because something that I kind of bitch about a lot, honestly, is that people want to say that like, oh, I don't know how to taste tea, or oh, well, I don't have a lot of experience, so I don't know. Maybe this doesn't taste like this. I'm like, if it tastes like that, it tastes like that.
Mm-hmm.
And like part of it is like just trusting your palate, right, and like remembering where those flavors show up. And I feel like when I talk about flavor, I try to talk about it in like almost like kind of a circular shape, where there's like form to it, and that almost helps that a little bit with kind of visualizing where that flavor is showing up. Why that sourness might show up right before the finish, and the finish isn't giving you any bitterness or anything. You know what I mean? So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah. So it may not be a real sourness because sometimes teas do have a real sourness to them,
true, very true.
and a lot of times I've learned, from tea quality professionals and consultants is that that's having a lot to do with the withering, that
Mm.
the tea's not being withered enough. I'd
I think you
assume,
told me that before.
yeah, probably. I'd assume that these teas were crafted, with someone that knew what they were doing and wouldn't have any withering problems. That's a problem you typically see from like the new world of like
Right.
India or Nepal or Sri Lanka. You'll see those kinds of problems.
Oh wait, that actually explains a lot. Okay, yeah, go on.
What was your discovery you just made?
I was just whenever I drink oolong, like from basically vendors that aren't from China or Taiwan, I feel like there's always like this strange sourness to them, and I've always just kind of chalked it up to being a terroir thing, but maybe it's just literally just because like
Yeah.
of what you're talking about.
Yeah, probably
Um,
is. Yeah, because the a lot of the orthodox tea producers in India use those very deep withering troughs with forced
mm,
air. So they say, oh, the forced air is helping to even the withering process. But I'll go and tell them, hey, in Taiwan, withering takes about 4 to 5 hours sometimes, and involves a lot of labor of moving the tea from here to there. So these teas probably went through like 3 or 4 different stages in their withering, depending on the equipments that the tea maker had.
sure.
And those are necessary steps to ensure that the leaves reach the moisture content, so that they can do proper processing. But in more commodified production, there's no time or real estate for that. They need to pump out more tea, so they use these very deep withering troughs, and yeah, it does have a very big impact on the quality. A lot of tea masters have told me that the withering is the most important step in all of tea processing.
you've mentioned that I think maybe 2 or 3 times before.
I don't want you to forget it.
I won't ever. Honestly, like you mentioned it enough that like you said something about withering it, and like immediately in my brain I went, oh, and that's a very important part of the tea making process. That is very true. Yeah. So I have a question for you, actually.
Yeah.
Being somebody that is into, you know, what's it called? Not monoculture,
Biodiversity.
biodiversity. Yes. So something that just I had mentioned something about this before we were talking about before we started the podcast. There was just something that I had seen on the website for Mountain Stream Teas, and it was about like Dongding, and I was just kind of wondering if you had any explanation for this, because I've seen a lot of mention about Dongding specifically in a lot of like vendor sites, a lot of stuff that you read about in terms of like the biodiversity in the fields as well as like pesticide use.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just kind of like, why is that such a big topic with Dongding? Like, why is it so hard to find agrochemical free Dongding according to MST? Or why are these like very biodiverse like wild fields like such a big thing in Dongding according to other, so I'm very curious, I guess. I don't know if you
I
have any
don't. I
knowledge to
don't
share.
think it's a problem exclusive to the Lugu area.
Sure.
It's a problem all throughout Taiwan as well as Japan,
Mm.
and also China as well. I mean, China is a much more industrial place, but also in China you can find biodiversity and agroforestry are not unique to China. I think of all of Yunnan and the beautiful pu'er teas that you can get, but in Taiwan, um, there's finite resources there. There's finite amount of land that's available to grow tea, while they are directly connected to a finite, uh, an infinite market of China that they can sell their teas. So,
Sure. Okay.
those factors combined leads to the adoption of agriculture practices that are going to optimize, your revenue and your business opportunity. Um, Additionally, it's not just pesticides. It's like the whole concept of monoculture, which, for me, like I don't like to call it organic or inorganic. I just like to call it the monoculture or biodiverse. And a monoculture system is just an entire ideology about how you are going to take on your farm. You're going to optimize and reduce the diversity as much as possible using chemicals or other methods. There's another problem in Taiwan you see a lot and hear about a lot, which is the betel nut. Have you heard of betel nut before?
No. Well, I mean, I've literally got some betel nut aroma liu bao like next to me, but other than that, no.
Okay, I have. That must be just like a marketing name. I never heard of that before. But
I have no idea.
betel nut is actually a very important plant around the world. That's a very common habit. I was first exposed to it when I lived in Africa. I've seen it throughout India, and it's very popular in Taiwan as well. It's a stimulant. There's like a nut, and you chew on it, and it numbs your mouth, and it's almost like tobacco. It almost gives you a similar reaction as tobacco.
Hmm.
So you can imagine like that industry, once it popularized in Taiwan, that became like a huge cash crop, and so a lot of tea growing areas started getting major monocropping of betel nut, which is an invasive species and caused a lot of problems. But there's such a high demand. Betel nut in Taiwan. Colin, if you ever have a chance to go to Taiwan to go learn about tea, which I'm sure you will at some point in your life,
Hopefully.
make that happen. You will notice, especially in the countryside, you will notice small cafes of sorts in every town that is like having the biggest neon signs in all of the town. They're very obvious and noticeable. And when you drive past them, You'll notice like girls in bikinis hanging out inside. It's not a bikini coffee store. It's a that's where you'll get your betel nut, and like that's where the men go hang out. They sell other snacks and drinks, but these bikini girls are cutting up and serving betel nut. It's just kind of a cool little cultural thing about Taiwan that if you go, you will definitely notice it. But you know, it's interesting to see that relationship because then whenever you go through the tea fields, you will notice these large palms. They're like palm trees. They grow very tall, bushy palms at the top. Those are all betel nuts. Now that I've told you this, when you look at pictures of tea fields in Taiwan, you're going to start to notice them. They're everywhere.
Totally
They're like invasive. They're all over the place, and they become a big problem.
Is that bad for the tea then?
It's bad for the tea. Yeah. It's bad for the tea. Well, because, yeah, then certain lands get dedicated towards that, so tea gets uprooted and those come in, and then those trees absorb a lot of the nutrients in the water and the soil. They're invasive, you know, they're kind of like gentrifiers coming in and taking over, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like that concept. But it's such a popular cultural item in Taiwan, there's really no turning the industry off. That's a fancy cup. You got a little like platinum foot on your cup.
Yeah, it's got a little gold foot. It's a little blue bamboo thing.
Nice. That looks like something I have here in my tea room. Everything is like hand painted platinum. Here, I want to show you an example of one. I've got like a whole ton of stuff here.
Is it teaware show off time?
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't even fit that all into like one, but like this is just an example of one. So this is the Gaiwan.
Mm-hmm.
It's white on the outside. It's gold rimmed throughout here. Even on the top, it's like gold. I don't know if you can see that from far away.
Yeah.
It's gold there. And then it's black on the inside.
I love that.
And
so
then,
you can't see the stain.
Yeah, and then I paired it with this, whatever, the saucer from the bottom, the plate on the bottom.
Very nice.
I've got a whole ton of beautiful China. These are all hand-painted gold. This is hand-painted gold on here. No joke. But
just
anyway,
showing off now.
I'm just showing off. It's all for sale. It's all for sale. It's like a fire sale. It's crazy. I need to get rid of it. I like the...
We're having a fire sale.
What were those like from like the 80s and the 90s? Like those crazy car commercials where someone would get on the be like, "Oh, I'm going crazy over here. We're just nuts."
Oh, I don't know. I was born in the late 90s.
Oh my god, Gen Z, okay.
No, I mean, yeah, I guess. Nobody can decide.
When Gen Z starts or ends, or...
What are your impressions of the two? I'm curious to hear.
Yeah, I think I definitely do prefer the green over the roasted.
Mm-hmm.
Just more satisfying. Like the roasting one does have that reminiscent like comfort aroma to it, and probably like if I was in a situation where someone was like adverse to caffeine, I would definitely serve the roasted one to them.
That's why I'm sipping on it more right now.
But yeah, the green one's just like more exciting. It does have a roundness, like the texture finishes.
Yeah.
It doesn't like give you, you know, something fun and then just flatten out like the roasted one does.
My only thing about it is that I do feel like it's missing something in the middle, and I think that is a little bit of roast, honestly. But I just do think that the heavy roast went a little too far.
What was the roast? Do you have the deets on the roast?
Yeah, so it's 4 charcoal roasts, and I believe they're 8 hours a piece.
Yeah, that is a lot.
I'm trying to see, because I saw the information about it earlier.
The roasted one is definitely not opening as much as
No.
the unroasted.
Yeah, 140C for 4 8-hour sessions. It's also 40% oxidation. And the unroasted's 35%.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a difference.
Yeah.
Plus 5% makes a big difference. That could be why the green one is so fruity, because the higher oxidation changes a lot of the floweriness to fruitiness.
Well, so the greener one is the lower oxidation
Oh,
of
is
the
it?
two.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I guess I
I
misheard you.
still think the green one's very fruity though, which is odd, but
Yeah, it's quite fruity.
yeah.
It's also kind of spicy too.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't like roast? Does that mean that you don't like yangchas?
It's not that I dislike roast, it's that I dislike really, really heavily roasted stuff. I actually just got some yancha today, and there's a vendor here in the States that sells yancha that a lot of his stuff is fairly light, has a fairly lighter roast to it for yancha,
Mm-hmm.
which I can very much appreciate. Really, what it is that, and I think I'm starting to learn this, is that I used to say, oh, I don't like a lot of roast. I think I just don't like a lot of. I don't think I like a heavily roasted dongding is what it really is. I like that kind of middle ground on this one, like a little bit of roast, but not too much. But like with the yancha, like I can take a little bit higher roast, but like a lighter roasted like rogui over a dahong pao is probably a preference still, So I don't want something that's coming out super red.
Yeah, the roasting process, especially charcoal roasting, is very labor intensive and time intensive.
Yes.
So, yeah, I
It's usually
guess.
done overnight as well, correct?
Hmm. Yeah, they'll be going at it for weeks sometimes, like they're really heavily, steadily but roasted. So, I mean, that could be something else too, that maybe um, this one was roasted not so slowly. I mean, that's the thing about charcoal that's better than the electric roasting, is that it's done slower,
Right.
lower and slower.
And it's not like it's not that you necessarily do that on purpose. It's literally like a limitation of. So yeah.
Cool. Well, I have some teas. I saw that you sent some other teas over. I think we can make some pretty cool pairings with
Yeah.
the rest of the teas that you sent. And I also sent you some interesting teas, and including that yellow, the Timir yellow you were interested in. Blow your socks off. I know.
I've never had yellow before. I'm really excited.
Really? You haven't had any Chinese yellows or anything?
Uh-uh.
Mm. Oh man.
None.
Well, maybe you should try to get yourself some so you can. I don't have any Chinese yellow teas. Traditional, there's a big argument that like only certain types of tea can be yellow tea, and
I steered myself clear of the yellow tea debate so far simply because of the fact that I'm like, yo, it's we get really angry about it. It's weird. It's very weird.
there's no reason to get angry about tea.
No, I
Tea
agree.
is supposed to calm us down, and
I am very calm after this session. I think I'm gonna need to take my shower and go to bed soon.
yeah, good for you. Good for you. But hey, yeah, update us. How's it going with the podcast?
Oh, with the editing.
Mm-hmm.
So the first episode that we recorded is gonna have to be 2 episodes. For
Oh.
one, we'll have a 2-parter to start off.
Oh, riveting.
Yeah, the audio actually starts a little rough and gets a little bit better by about episode 2 or 3. We had some
Sorry.
kinks to work out at the beginning.
My fault.
No, it happened. I mean, we figured it out eventually. But yeah, they're clocking in at just under an hour, and yeah, I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be good. And honestly, I'm kind of trying to keep it as free flowing as possible and not trying to over edit them. So I'm like listening to them through and like cutting out like where we like stop and do nothing for a little bit and just drink tea.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to keep it as like flowing and conversational as possible because I know that that's what we were hoping for. So
Yeah. Yeah, it should be
you know,
cool. Got a lot of people waiting for this. So yeah, these live podcasts that we've been recording, Colin is actually editing these, then they'll get released.
and we talked about doing them as video and as audio, and so they'll be on like various podcast platforms as audio. And then what the plan is if there's like video content like that you shared, that might only be in the video podcast, but it's in two formats. So if you prefer to watch, if you prefer to like be a part of the tea drinking process, like you can be, or you can simply listen as you like drive or work or whatever. So
Yeah.
it will be released in two mediums.
I'm
Cool.
curious about podcast consumption. That I think that most people that are into podcasts are into it because of the audio aspect of it.
Yeah, so I know a lot of people that like that like video podcasts. Those folks tend to be like people that kind of like work more at computers and stuff. I feel like when you work on computers, it's not uncommon to have shit in the background, you know?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of folks that like they'll be working and they like to have a video podcast up here because like they like to see the stupid shit that, you know, the hosts do and stuff like that. And so it's actually much more common apparently than I realized. So I was looking into it as well recently, and yeah, it's very popular right now. So
Cool.
vodcast, I don't know.
Awesome. Well, hey, does the chat have any questions about Dongding tea, roasted oolong, unroasted oolong?
At least we'll be able to answer them better, but I can tell you what they taste like.
Oh, you know what? We didn't even talk at all about the counterfeiting issue. I know we talked a little bit about...
We didn't.
Yeah, we talked a little bit, and maybe we can throw this in at the end. You can edit it in there to be there. But yeah, we talked about the monoculture issue and the chemical issue. It's just really hard to find organic tea, and it's really hard to find farmers that are like taking the extra measures to be less invasive on the environment. Now, the government is stepping in and trying to make some efforts to regulate, including uprooting plants. So some of these like really high elevation mountain areas, they've been completely monocultured so much that there are no other trees and there's no other organisms in the ground that help hold the mountain together. I mean, it's as simple as that. You know, that if there's nothing to hold the mountain together when you have a big rain, that's where landslides come from.
Right.
That's where that all comes from. And so the government's trying to stop that stuff from happening because that could be dangerous for entire communities. That can shut off roads. That can create logistics problems. So they're actually requiring farmers to uproot certain tea trees in certain areas, like Dayuling, which is like really famous for high elevation, very high quality tea, very expensive, very valuable. At this point, I think only has 12 acres of tea planted. There used to be more, but the government required a lot of the tea to be uprooted and other indigenous trees and such to be replanted to help maintain the health of the mountain so the mountain doesn't fall apart. But on
Risk of sounding like a hippie. It's almost as if nature has a way of figuring its own shit out.
Yeah, you know, nature is a pretty beautiful, amazing mother for us. We can learn a lot.
She's been doing it for a hot minute.
Yeah. But the other major issue that is particularly common in Dongding, although this happens with all Taiwanese teas, is counterfeiting. And just as the Taiwanese have done an incredible job of education and cultivar creation and distribution into the community, they've been able to apply that same skill to going to completely different countries such as China, Vietnam, or Thailand, and completely replicating a tea in the taste of the tea and the terroir of the tea to be like a Dongding or to be like a Lishan. And then those teas end up making their way into the market labeled as those famous mountains. Dongding is the case. And they'll do it even with teas coming from within Taiwan. So Alfredo, our tea maker friend that came on, the 18 Ruby tea farmer, his family has several generations lineage very near to Lugu in a place called Jushan. Very close. It's like at the base of Lugu. It's like a lower elevation, not very far. I think it takes less than 20 minutes to go from one to the other. He was telling me that his family is pretty much exclusively selling their teas to one company in China that is relabeling all the tea as Dongding. So they process it to be like Dongding style tea. And, a lot of times it's not the tea farmers that are doing that stuff. It's like other marketers, it's other tea companies that are relabeling those products. So that was the first time I had ever heard about this problem. And Alfredo has taken me to several other places in Taiwan. And it's funny, well, like Alishan, we were in Alishan. It's a huge tourism destination. We were walking through like a tourist shop that was selling all these beautifully packaged Lishan tea, and he's fake. And I'm like, how do you know those are all fake? He's like, the price wouldn't be that way. All the real stuff has already been sold and closed business deals. He's like, this stuff is all probably coming from Vietnam. Even the brand Ten Ren, which is a very famous Taiwanese tea brand, nationalistic style tea brand. Majority of their tea is grown in Vietnam, and it's not a secret, but it always surprises people, especially people from Taiwan, because that is like a national pride brand. Like if you go to a business meeting or a party and you want to take a gift, that tends to be a very like safe, proud gift to bring, but the product itself is actually coming from a different country. So there's a lot of that. You got to be mindful of it. Even if you go to these places and try to buy from the source, unless you're really there, and some tea vendors will tell stories of how they like sleep at the farmer's place and like even sleep with the bags of tea or sleep in the processing room so that the farmer won't have the opportunity to switch out the bags or, do something to...
It's wild.
Yep. It's wild.
But I mean, anything to make more money, right?
Yeah. Oh, patriarchy.
Oh, beautiful. Well, shall we call it a night?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we didn't get any questions. So I think, this is pretty chill. I definitely got some off-topic questions from Reddit, but, that's typical.
Yeah, I can see I can't seem to get your comments actually open, but I can see a preview for at least one, something about women.
Yeah.
So really pulling out the real intelligent ones.
Well, maybe it's like my viewership. I've got like a I don't know if this is a regular viewer, a regular follower that's been here before, but I've definitely have had conversations about patriarchy and misogyny and whatnot. So maybe this is... Yes, me. Yes, of course.
Really?
Oh, we just got a good question. What is this and how did I get here?
Welcome, friend.
Yeah, this is the metaverse. Welcome. Here's some tea.
Well, Elise, thank you so much for joining myself, I guess, and thanks for letting me join you.
Yeah, no, this is always fun. I look forward to our next session, Colin, and look forward to the podcast. Thank you so much for all your hard work and effort to get that going.
And thanks for the teas that are on the way.
Yeah, they're almost there.
Cool. All right, take it easy. I will see you next time.
All right, see you next time. Bye. Bye. this is a master class. We just did a pretty big deep dive into a specific style of Taiwanese oolong called Dongding. Funny name, I know. But Dongding is a mountain, a famous tea mountain in the Lugu area of Nantou, Taiwan, that is known for lightly roasted oolong tea production. So today we tasted a unroasted versus a heavily roasted Dongding and kind of compared them and gave a little bit of a history on Taiwanese tea growing and tea processing and some of the major current issues, of the industry and the market. So, it's a masterclass. If you're into tea, you should give me a follow. My name is Elise. I am a tea importer. I'm based in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I import tea on behalf of small artisanal family tea growers around the world, not just in Taiwan, but all over China, India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Malawi, Africa, and many more, including here in the United States. And I mostly do wholesale distribution to restaurants and to hospitality groups or tea brands. I'm not really here to sell y'all tea, although I'm certainly happy to introduce the tea lifestyle to you. And if you are interested in knowing where to buy good tea in your area, I'm a good person to help you with that. Like, I, of course, can sell you some, but I'd be more interested in connecting you with a local tea space that you can physically enter, make friendships, and learn from each other. The tea lifestyle is incredibly artistic, empathetic, meditative, and can bring a lot of joy and goodness to your life. So that's what I'm doing here. My accreditations or my credentials, I'm a BS in food science and technology. I was a Peace Corps volunteer as an agriculture extension agent in West Africa as well as the Caribbean, a small country called Antigua and Barbuda. And I have a MBA, a Japanese-focused MBA from the University of Hawaii. And now I've been founder and CEO of this tech company. It's a distributed tech company. We are a blockchain company, Bitcoin, religious company. So that tends to be a lot of the content that I bring onto stream as well. So if you are interested in anything I just said, give me a follow. I'm drinking cha. Yes, I am. Drinking cha. So yeah, cha, this would be the technical word for what I'm drinking here, because this is coming from Taiwan. They do call tea cha in Taiwan after the Chinese word. But dense relation. Thank you for that. We're drinking, this is a heavily roasted Dongding. This is an oolong from Taiwan, and this is the unroasted. The exact same tea grown in the exact same place by the exact same factory. Just processed a little differently. But we just finished about an hour or so live podcast recording. My friend Colin has left the podcast. You're just left with me. I will be ending this stream very soon, but give me a follow. Oh, you like Kratom? Oh, that's cool. Awesome. Yeah, Kratom has become quite popular. I don't deal in Kratom. Did you know that Kratom is actually illegal to import into the United States? It is not illegal to retail. It is not illegal to possess and to consume, but it is illegal to import. So that leaves very interesting math equation. But I heard it has really great properties and has, been a very positive part of people's lives. So if it is your medicine and you enjoy it, that's all good. The FDA. It's actually not the FDA. That's another organization that's ruling over that. But there's plenty of supply getting in, obviously, Doobie. So it's helped you great. Awesome. I'm happy to hear that. Yeah. I'd also recommend to anybody. So, like, even if you are dealing with an ailment or not, tea will improve your life. Like, and I'm talking about tea, not like herbal tea. Kratom is actually not tea. Kratom is a completely different plant. Tea comes from one specific plant, the Camellia sinensis plant, which does possess caffeine, but its magical ingredient is something called L-theanine, which causes the caffeine's reaction in your body to be a mental focus and a body relaxation, which can be extremely helpful with mindfulness as well as restfulness and anti-anxiety. So if kratom has helped you, I would definitely recommend exploring different teas with energy. So if you're specifically looking for energy, I would recommend matcha, ceremonial grade matcha, which is the powdered green tea from Japan. You see it oftentimes in coffee shops now. It's become a very popular latte ingredient. But the reason why it has more energy, more caffeine, is because it's the entire tea leaf that's been ground into a powder, which can then be, added to the water and mixed in. Versus like conventionally brewed tea like this, all the caffeine and the good stuff is in the leaves, but what we drink is just what gets infused into the water. So you do get caffeine and such, but when it's ground, you're getting a higher dosage. And matcha is also processed and engineered to optimize the caffeine and the L-theanine production, so you're going to get a higher dosage of those things. And L-theanine, if you haven't heard of that before, that is a very popular nootropic ingredient. Nootropics is a relatively new category of supplements. So like pills, different extracted nutrients in pill form, which are brain drugs. They call them brain. Nootropics is like brain focus. And it's funny, a lot of the ingredients that are extracted and put into those supplements are actually coming from the tea plant. So, in addition to getting those compounds, when you're going through this practice of heating your water and measuring your tea leaf and brewing it and, holding space for your guests, if you have guests, then that's going to optimize that meditative process and ritual and increase those, mindfulness effects that you get from the tea. But 07 Doobie, if you are interested in matcha tea, I do caution, going to Amazon to get your matcha, because there's a wide range of quality and even legitimacy within matcha. And so a lot of people will go to Amazon and just buy something based off of price, and when they get it, they're highly disappointed because it doesn't taste good. It'll be very bitter. Tea is very bitter. If I was to eat this right here, this tea leaf right here, it would be extremely bitter to eat because it's got a lot of caffeine in it. But the matcha is engineered to be less bitter, more sweet, more of the umami from the amino acids. There's a lot of science behind it, which is really great, cool. But I'd caution you about matcha, and if you are interested in seeing what the farmers I work with have to offer, you can come to my website there. I don't know if I wrote it right. teaanditspeople.com. I think the second one is definitely right. The first one might be right too. I just don't know. I think I might have did it right. I did it wrong. If you go to my website, you can actually see where the tea comes from. All of my teas come from farms, so we don't really have a brand. Even my company is not really a brand, because my company is a platform, kind of like Amazon is a platform. But you can see the farmers, and there's a there's a producer that's making a matcha on that website you can see, and you can learn about, you know, how the tea is specially grown and specially processed to make it extra sweet and yummy and, you know, focus. Pikachu, thank you for the pinky. So Tiger, the podcast is called The First... No, the podcast is over. I'm talking to y'all. Y'all, I'm sorry. I was kind of ignoring y'all for a second. It's called The First Steep. I record it with my friend Colin, whom I've met on TikTok. He is also a tea enthusiast and content creator, and we decided to record this podcast. I think we've done 10 episodes now, which is crazy. I think we started in like August. Yeah, we're messing with me. I totally nodded and winked at you, though. I wanted to let you know I was seeing you. But, yeah, we recorded on Monday nights, and when we're recording the live podcast... Oh, that reminds me, I need to turn my Audacity recording off. When we record the live podcast, we try to stay focused, so that way when he gets the audio, it's easier for him to edit it, instead of having to cut out, you know, all of these, like, little side talks and side conversations we have with chat. But we finished the podcast already. So you make tea? Yeah, we make tea. We made 2 different teas. We always compare 2 different teas. So today we compared, these are the same teas coming from the same place, the same farm, everything. It's just they're processed very differently. One's unroasted and one's roasted. So that's what we do. That's what we do. But yeah, if y'all are interested in tea, please give me a follow. Try to come back to my streams. I know they feel weird. It's like, what the heck I'm doing listening to this hippie talk about tea. But surprisingly, we have a lot of fun here. I'm usually listening to some pretty rad music. And we have good conversations about technology, about, you know, society, humanity, and ultimately how we can all be better people and better neighbors. Hey, Mr. Mars, welcome in. Good to see you again. You're not a hippie, you're real. That's funny, I can be a hippie. I'm good, Mr. Mars. How you doing? We just finished recording our podcast. I'm about to end my streams online. So Reddit, love y'all. Keep it real. We'll see you next time. Bye. And Twitch, I don't think we have it. Tef might be here. Tef, is it still you? Is this still you? Keep it real. We'll see you next time. Bye. My big mouth. Is this still you? Is this... Yep, it's still tough. Yeah, I don't have the energy to raid anywhere. I've gotta go do another project. So I'm just gonna end the stream. Ted, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. Hope you learned a little bit about Dongding Oolong tea. I'll see y'all tomorrow night. Gonna be doing some gaming tomorrow night, as we usually do on Tuesday nights. Rest well, everyone.